Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today. We are so happy you're here, and I am really excited to have the group that I have joining me. The session today, 2021 into 2022, an outlook from your peers. What does that mean? We figured as we got together one last time in this year, we would wrap up everything that's going on in 2021 and look forward to the next year, which hopefully means we are looking forward to it. So we're going to take everybody's temperature that's on the call. Not literally, I know temperatures and taking temperatures, maybe a little sensitive at this time, but we will at least see what's going on. So I'm looking forward to do that. To the peers that are joining me today, I should probably introduce those guys, but let me introduce myself first. I am Nolan Parker, National Account Manager for S&S Activewear. With me today, I have a distinguished list. At least that's what they have all told me. But nonetheless, I'll introduce them. First and foremost, Patty Lambert Seismitz from Gildan Activewear. She's the Vice President of Distributor Sales. Thanks for joining us today, Patty.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
I look forward to you being a part of this, Patty. You and I, as part of the kind of prep, getting going with this call, we had a very candid and extensive conversation. I told Aaron I wish we would have just recorded that call, but nonetheless, you have a lot to contribute, and it's nice to have you with us. So thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
And the next, coming in from, I guess, Illinois. I don't know if Chicago is what we consider that where you're at, Justin, but Justin Moore, founder of Barrel Maker. Thanks for joining, Justin.
Right. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you walk the halls at S&S, and you've got quite a reputation, a positive reputation nonetheless. So, whatever you're doing it right. Yeah, it's going to be a good call. I think your perspective is going to offer a lot today.
Awesome.
And then last but certainly not least, last certainly not least is going to be Travis Veet, owner and partner at Imprint Engine. Travis, thanks for joining us today, man.
Absolutely.
So anyway, why don't we just get into it? No use kind of getting around the commonalities and how everybody's what the weather is in your part of the neck of the woods. So we're at an interesting time nonetheless. So maybe where we start is, and whoever wants to jump in, how would any of you describe the last 18 or the 20 months of your life?
I can start.
Sure.
Well, I guess in one word, it would be a whirlwind. Probably the same for everybody, but COVID, unprecedented levels of demand. Working from home with a teenager in the house, for a year. It's been an interesting 18 months. It has not been dull, that is for sure.
Yeah, I worked at home for just a few days, but I have a teenager and two other smaller kids too. So I got back to the office pretty quickly. But it was definitely an interesting year. It was a really kind of good opportunity, I think, for our business to try and change, some of the things that we do and kind of look through getting like tighter processes because we had to utilize a smaller team. And then, ultimately we made some pretty big shifts into, whether it was manufacturing face masks for a bit and then also working on like fundraiser stores and ultimately doing a lot more individual shipments. So we found a huge sort of boost in taking bulk orders but then shipping to all the various like employees at home or virtual conferences or things like that. So um, I think us, like a lot of other companies, were able to sort of like hang in there and make the best of it.
Yeah, every day is different. One day you're dealing with trying to get the supply chain up and running, and then the next day it seems like you're dealing with an overstrained supply chain. It's just it's been a year of pivoting for sure.
Yeah, we had invested a good amount of resources into building out our 3PL here in Minnesota, and that was at about 3 months before COVID hit. So when you put a large investment into something like that, and all of a sudden nobody's ordering anything, and you're like, this isn't good. But it turns out that because we took that step and put that process in place, it really helped us move into the remainder of last year and keep us going this year with the kitting and drop shipping, which it's people are realizing now that they want to reach their customers, they want to reach their employees, they want to obviously put something unique in front of them, and you can elevate that experience with customized boxes and whatever decorative kitting that you're going to put in there. And I mean, it's really opened up a new avenue within this industry.
It's funny you bring up kind of your pre-COVID, where your business was, because I think that's maybe so important to touch on. We all had these great plans for, for 2020. I can remember being probably at PPAI in Vegas, maybe with one of you, having a cocktail. And, the world just changed so quick. And, you had all these plans. And then you went from, that scenario to a whole bucket full of challenges for an extended amount of time, right? So, like I think you said, Travis, like you didn't even know if people were going to come back to order and how the business was evolved. So that's where we were, maybe a year ago. Like, how are we going to move through this? How do I pivot? Which I think you said, mentioned Patty already. And then now we all, I think, wished we were here. And now we've gotten here and, oops, there's a whole different set of circumstances. So I guess I'd like to know how you guys are overcoming the circumstances that we're in now. And there's a ton of different pain points, right? Inventory, pricing challenges, labor, just to throw those out. So any thoughts on how you guys are moving through what we're facing today?
Well, at Gildan, I think, Justin even mentioned, you find just different things you found. The whole pandemic and all of this kind of highlighted maybe some of your areas that you needed to work on. And I think with Gildan, we've had to really rely on our global supply chain in terms of, COVID hit, then we got hit by 2 hurricanes of the century within a matter of 2 weeks. We've had to adjust our supply chain to deal with, the labor shortages here in the U.S. Are causing, yarn issues, which causes inability to get textiles, in the places you always want them. So you're moving your supply chain around to try to respond. So there's lots of being nimble has really probably been one of the things we've tried to do and we've been able to take advantage of because our supply chain being vertical allows us to do it. But it's probably one of the key ways we've tried to overcome some of these challenges.
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, probably the biggest challenge that we've had for the last few months has been on the just straight up receiving side of inventory. So typically if we were to look a couple of years ago, it's like if you need 50 shirts or 100 shirts or maybe even 1,000 plus shirts, it's like you order them and the next day it's all there together and it's no big deal. And now it's like you could have a 24-piece order and it's pulling from multiple different warehouses or even different vendors. And so it's been a big struggle for us to keep track of that. We've had to add a bigger staff to our receiving team, and we've also had to really like get into documenting our receiving better. We've created like some automation spreadsheets and things to like really just track where we're at with an order, because now it could take a week before all the pieces are even all together so that we could print them. So that's been a huge struggle, but I'm really looking forward to like a year out, hopefully a year out or less, or, where it starts to go back to how it used to be, because then I feel like it's just going to feel like such a breeze.
Yeah, for us, it came down to being able to control as many processes as we can to eliminate, all the outside factors that are coming into play. So we acquired a production company, print, embroidery, sublimation, the whole works at the end of 2020, and now we're implementing a lot of cut and sew operations domestically. I'd love to be able to buy 10,000 shirts from Patty, but if they don't have what I need, I'm going to make it here. And another way to pivot is, being able to use the textiles that you do have and implementing sublimation. You can take a blank canvas and you can make it look at any way you want. And then, you add on the additional accessories of, the woven patches and all these things. And it's, we're playing into what our strengths are, which is controlling the production and distribution. So we use that in the facet of everyday business, and it's been great. It would be even more amazing to see everything that was here in 2019 come back. Then I feel like we'll be hitting the ground running on all cylinders.
So, technology came up in a couple instances here, and maybe it's a good time to talk about how technology has improved, and maybe out of necessity at this point, what you guys do. And technology can mean a lot of different things. For me, 18 months ago, I was an in-person guy, and dropping off donuts and showing samples and sitting around a table, and as soon as COVID happened, all of a sudden now here we are. We're utilizing platforms and technology that I thought I would never use. So how is technology? And again, we have big and small here, relatively speaking. From Gildan to a decoration screen print shop. How's technology played a role in I guess helping you guys be nimble, as Patty said, or pivoting with your business?
For me, I've worked from home for the better part of 20 years in the privacy of my house, going to the gym in the morning, putting my baseball hat on, and now my world went upside down when everyone else decided to work at home too. So, it's kind of funny. It's interesting. I get asked this all the time, and I find that technology, and in particular the use of like Microsoft Teams and such, has, for me personally, I think it's made me feel closer to my colleagues and customers. I would say that the people that work in my office have had a different experience. They're used to that are office based. They find themselves more disconnected. So it's an interesting contrast there. But so from the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day exchanges with people, I think it's been a positive. That said, I'm starting to hit the road again, and it feels really good to see people. And there's just certain things you just can't get over a screen. There's just certain things you don't learn about a customer's business or get to know them. On the flip side, we've been forced, because of all the labor shortages, which are just so profound here in the U.S., to look at technology as a way to improve our supply. So we're actually adding like a robo-spin technology to our yarn spinning plants. So a piece of the business that used to be handled, by labor is now will be handled by a robot. It's always kind of been available. We never really went there, but it's forced some change on our part. So those are a couple of the ways, at least as it's impacted me or Gildan.
And then what about the power restrictions that we're seeing overseas? It's like you guys can implement this process, but then all of a sudden you have the power shortages, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, we actually spin all of our yarn in the U.S. So we're the largest spinner of yarn in I think this one of our particular plants is one of the largest in the world. We're the largest in this hemisphere anyway. So we really don't spin in the U.S. And then our all of our manufacturing, at least in Gildan's case, we use a lot of sustainable processes to run our plants. So we actually really try to minimize. Electricity is very expensive in Central America and in other countries, but long before sustainability was like the word, we were doing those things quite frankly because they were less expensive for us. So we haven't been impacted.
How about you guys? Has technology played a role in your business? Maybe either systematically, like Patty was talking about with automation, or maybe a platform that maybe were invested in before, but marginally invested in, and now it's a way of life?
For us, we are a tech company at heart. The other founding partner was the former CTO for a very large company. He built it from 2 employees to 200, and he integrated with everything you could possibly think of in the real estate sector. So that was one of the big reasons that I reached out to him about doing this. And over the last 8 years, we've seen it evolve and build momentum in everything we do. We're continually adding skilled, amazing individuals to our executive team and to our IT division that help us. We build internally, we integrate with anything. We have the ability to say yes when people ask us to do something. And I can tell you right now, it's not me, but the team, they can do it. And one of the really cool things that's populated is Slack. And Slack allows you to communicate with your clients, and you can do one-on-ones. You can have a corporate channel between your organization and theirs, and being able to streamline the communication and share files through Slack has been tremendous. And is everybody familiar with it?
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it, but we don't use it.
Yeah.
So, little tidbit on Slack. The guy who built it, it was a communication channel within a video game. Turned out the video game wasn't a hit. Well, his communication channel was. He's now taken it public, and you can Google it. There's a lot of zeros in that valuation. So dumb luck brought him one of the best tools from 2021.
Do you? I'm curious. I think my team and us are exhausted a little bit by there's constant communication too that comes with some of this technology. We've actually talked about having like no Teams Friday, just to let people get their work done, because we're used to walk into an office and have a conversation. Now you're scheduling a meeting or whatever. How do you guys balance that? Are you doing anything special or?
Yeah, working a lot, making sure our employees still want to come into work every day. So we use a lot of systems and a lot of platforms. So what we do is we try to have a central source for where we bring all the information, whether it's Asana, Slack, Zoho, your Gmail. We try to bring it all into one location, and then we synchronize it together. And then our teams who work in pods, they can then dissect from each piece of information that's taken out. We get the nitty gritty from each piece, bring it in, and then we build out the one master, the production file or whatever it is that we need to do. And you just try to centralize as much as possible. Because like you said, there's so much going on where I really don't need to pay attention to the 27 communications that were in Asana that correlate to the common SKU project, that correlate to the Slack conversation, that correlate to copper. It's like, okay, so what is it that we do that we can just dumb this down and simplify for everyone? Everybody plays their part. We bring it in a central place, and then we disperse.
So right now, literally everybody that's attending this session is Googling Asana and Slack, and Copper. Like, what are these? Like these wizard tools that using? It's a great question though, Patty, because And we started kind of in the subject matter prior to, like, there used to, I mean, our industry is pretty boundaryless anyway. We're a very personal industry. Like, we hug and we are involved in each other's lives, be it through social media or just in our daily friendships. I mean, most of the friends we have, in many instances, we've they're customers or colleagues or even competitors in some instances. And now what's happened is that blurry line is like totally gone. Like, to give a perfect example, my wife, she works for a major insurance company. She manages large groups, and previously, it was very, 8 to 5, entertain at night kind of thing, and in the office or in workspace. And now she basically, she has a little bit of that, but generally speaking, she gets out of bed, makes the bed, like, gets dressed for work, goes to the computer. Her space is in our room, and she's like doing these big, massive projects for a lot of money. 10 feet from where she, slept, and maybe had a nightmare about insurance or something. So, yeah, it's really wild. And then you get into the work part of it even more, and the communication. Yeah, how do we get to a point where maybe we quiet some of that? Now we've, like, maybe gotten so heavy in communication platforms. Is there a way that we quiet, or should we be more mindful of how we quiet it?
In terms of like over communication, we've definitely struggled with that here. Like our core focus is production, right? Like, we're a production facility. We're not super heavy on the front end. Our goal is to just be, producing retail quality printing, and then on the other side, we do production, all over the country, basically live printing at events. So that completely shut down, and we definitely tried utilizing different platforms. Ultimately, what we found was what we were utilizing the most is a program called Airtable, which is just really helpful for our production team because we're kind of similar at least on the front end of things, where we'll get real into Slack or using CRMs or like all these other cool like platforms that we could communicate. But ultimately, all we're trying to do is filter everything down to our production team. And so the really cool thing about Airtable is essentially you're building out various spreadsheets, but every person can see only the part of the spreadsheet that they want to see, and they could view it how they want to view it. So that's been really cool for, like, even, printers could basically look at a spreadsheet visually in terms of the mock-ups for each print, and the person who's burning screens could just see like how many colors every design is and how many screens they have to burn in a day. And it's a really awesome tool that basically we've built now every other platform that we use into Airtable, and we use that to kind of be able to see everything that goes into production.
So you
When
centralize.
was that born?
Yeah.
Yeah, centralized is the best way. Was it born out of necessity, during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of that did have to do with the fact that we before the pandemic, we would have the office set up where if the production manager had a question, they would kind of walk into the office and talk to one of the account managers and kind of
Right.
resolve the problem. But when COVID hit, we did have a lot of people working from home, but production couldn't work from home. We still had to produce a
Right.
tangible product every day. So it was trying to figure out the best ways that we could sort of hone in all of our communication into something, easy to read for the various production roles.
It's never going to be perfect. It's controlled chaos.
Yeah.
For sure.
In our industry is very chaotic in itself, right? I mean, it's probably more so. I mean, Justin, your work kind of doing I say the same thing every day, but the processes and schedules. But
Yeah,
Travis, you're
from my perspective, it's if I have to I might have a client reach out to me real quick. They have something last minute, or maybe it's not last minute, but last minute planning. There's an event in 3 days. They need a bunch of shirts, and it's, let's say, 8 color front, 6 color back, a sleeve print, etc. And I'll write up the invoice real fast, and I'm like, this looks great. But then the next day, I could go into the dark room and they're crying. 'Cause it's like it's a big hit. And yeah, it's all scheduling, because typically people are ordering promo products and apparel for deadlined events, whether it's a trade show or a
Right.
conference or something like that. So yeah, it could get chaotic real fast.
Are you, I'm curious if you're finding whether people are adjusting, like, your Amazon package used to always come the next day. Now it's sometimes 2 days, and just certain things in life in general we've all had to like suddenly wait a little bit longer. Are you finding customers are willing to adjust to a little bit longer lead times, or are they still
Um,
like, expecting to
no,
be able to get a shirt in
I,
3 days with 8 color print?
yeah. I mean, I think like 6 months ago, COVID really mellowed people out, and everyone was friendly and real understanding, and it was like, oh yeah, yeah, it's a pandemic. If we could get custom shirts at all, we're happy. But it seems like people have kind of gone back to their old
Gone back.
ways pretty quickly. So yeah, we're seeing every day people asking for rush orders, and we've had to really kind of um, prevent taking those, and really kind of lay down the law a little bit more and say, like, we have to make sure that the garments are available first. And we're also doing a lot of scenarios now where we'll have people pick like a backup option, or give us a couple options, so that if we go to get the shirts and they're not there, at least we could right away try and find something else, and keep the order moving along. But I don't think people are as understanding as they were a few months ago.
we I have a lot of calls every
Yeah,
week with people
the
asking, how to mitigate the supply chain issues. And to your point, we're always like, you have to keep your design flexible. Like, if the design can be flexible, then you can put it on a different shirt, a different color shirt. You have to keep the silhouette flexible. Like, maybe you're gonna have to do a long sleeve instead of a fleece, or vice versa. And you know and grabbing inventory when you can, because it's still, it doesn't always work with some of this print on demand and quick turn stuff, but it's still going to be tight for the foreseeable future. So that's what we recommend. Is, it's great advice, and I'm sure it's much harder for someone to execute on the print side, but
yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
and
and
it's
typically our customers aren't, they're not in tune with the industry, so they're not coming into it expecting that they can't get, a white t-shirt tomorrow, So, and we're adapting to that too.
hmm well, we say it's, you can't get a car tomorrow either, or you can't get that chip for your washing machine. It's not isolated to our industry, and sometimes I feel like we have to remind folks that it's not just the t-shirt.
Yeah, it's a good point, Patty. We're seeing it in our day to day life, right, outside of our industry. So I guess this is probably a good time to pivot into the subject of customers, and you've kind of touched on it. But with all that's going on, how are you guys, meaning inventory challenges, supply chain challenges, all the challenges that we have, pricing included? How are you all managing your customers' expectations? Um, in the most positive way that you can. Travis, any tips or tricks to the trade right now to help?
Yeah. So for us, we have an international presence. So we have two different warehouses, about to be a third warehouse and production here in Minnesota. We have our Irish entity with distribution in Ireland. We've now introduced a UK distribution hub. We are trying to educate the consumer on, if you're going to be doing something that you're going to need in the future, let's plan accordingly. Let's do higher volumes. Let's make sure that we understand we're going to be a month out. we try to educate and push them towards making the right decision that's going to be the most cost effective and allow them the least amount of headaches in the future. If we can't get them to do what we think is best, we'll work within what they need us to do. And again, this goes back to being able to pivot when possible. And that's for us. We're okay with manufacturing domestically. We're okay with doing manufacturing in Europe. We don't want to emphasize that for everything because it does get more expensive. But if you provide them with, here's a higher cost option, this will be able to hit the timeline. This is one of one. This is for you. We will get it done. Know the value difference. You just leave it to the customer to make that decision.
Do you find that customers are more willing, because we've seen an uptick in premium sales and selling, higher priced goods, and we don't know if that's a result of the supply chain challenges or if customer, whatever, we don't know the mechanisms behind what's driving the demand for higher priced goods. Did any of you guys have insight into that and why?
I would point to the millennials. They have created a major focus on using social media. And within social media, they're broadcasting the brands they support. What the millennials generation supports is high-end goods that has to be sustainable. Do they give back? This is where you see those type of brands really skyrocket. Patagonias of the world, Mirror drinkware, for example. Those type of brands are elevated by this next generation, and they're being put on every social media outlet and being broadcast to millions for free, which leads into now we have influencers, and now we're focusing on those individuals to be the voice for the brand. And so, yeah, I think it has more to do with moving to the next generation that is tech savvy and is focused on sustainability.
No, I was just saying, I agree. We talk about this a lot, when we see shifts in share going to higher priced items or different share shifts, what's driving it. There's no doubt. I finally was able to get out and see some customers a few weeks ago. I was in Austin and I called on quite a few customers, and it was actually comforting because I think that their objectives align with our current core objectives, sustainability being a key objective. Like Gildan just became a member of the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol because we've always had a sustainability mindset. It's been part of the pillars of our company, but I don't think we always did such a good job telling people about it. And today, it's not are your products sustainable? Is your company sustainable? Do you give back? It's the point of entry, and it's the point of entry for all of us. And I think to Travis's point, it's just a lot of that is being driven by this virtual world. If you go to TikTok and put in Gildan or one of our brands, or it doesn't take long for you to kind of figure out what's driving the machine right now.
Are you a TikToker, Patty?
I am.
Let's see
it's more about stalking my children and their friends, but it's kind of turned into maybe a bad use of my time at night once in a while. It is crazy.
You go like 3 hours.
Really, if you go in and put in one of your brands, and I'm sure you guys see it, it's amazing to see what people are doing. I mean, this whole culture of home crafters it wasn't a driver of business before the pandemic. Then starting, in Q4 of 2020 into today, it's created I think the whole pie has gotten bigger because of some of this type of stuff going on. It's a really interesting trend.
Yeah, you brought that up when we talked previously, Patty, and I'd like to maybe go down that road a bit, and fellas, feel free to jump in. But the customer base, at least for us and Gildan, and probably you guys, even the mix has changed in a new and interesting way. And Patty, you had mentioned I don't know what we're calling them, and many of them are probably joining us today. But customers that are doing using technology like Cricut or and using platforms like Etsy to do direct sell to their customers and create and whatever. And so that now those customers are now taking a piece of that pie. And Patty, you mentioned, and I'd like you to even go down this road, if you will, like onshoring. I think is a word that you'd mentioned for a bunch of customers that typically would import product. Can you enlighten us a little
Yeah.
bit on
Um,
what you guys are seeing from that space?
with the pandemic and with, as you can't pick up the newspaper, what used to be a newspaper, and read about the transportation issues, the lack of containers, all of these things, yarn shortages, all of these things have really driven a lot. Before the pandemic, if you were like a good sized company that had some merchandising savvy, some supply chain savvy, you could bring in your own shirts. If you were doing enough volume, you could bring in containers of shirts. Folks, there were folks that were very good at that. And that whole group of customers, whether it's retailers, private label companies, a zillion different places can't get their goods anymore from overseas. So they're really coming into our channel, in particular to places like S&S and 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 buying big volume. And it's challenging to control. We'll see a distributor's inventory in black t-shirts drop 500,000 units in a day, and the distributor doesn't know it either, because if the customer is paying cash or credit, has an account and decides they're going to pay cash, which people are doing, you can't control that they're buying those goods. So obviously we all like more business, but we also want to service our regular day-to-day customers. So I think the real challenge is for us, it's how is this around to stay? Is this business going to retract and go back to the way it was before, where some people are sourcing their own goods, or are more people just going to say, I'm out, it's too complex, it's gotten too challenging, it's too expensive? Um, we talk about this all the time, the cost of a container. We know when cotton's going up, you have a little time there. When certain costs of your business are going up, transportation from one day to the next can change 7 times the cost of a container. Yep. And if you don't have that built into your price, it can really put some margin pressure on. So we kind of think the conventional wisdom, I'd say, when I talk to people about this, is that the onshoring is here for a while. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and they're certainly taking a nice bite out of that pie. Already in a challenging supply chain, and in an environment where you guys are trying to move earth to get product into the distribution, and you guys are Travis and Justin are trying to get that product to satisfy the good. So along the same lines of that, I know that I made mention to how our customers are evolving. And I think about a buddy of mine that owns a very successful bar and grill where I live in Kansas City. And if I would have told him, 2 years ago that 40% of his business would now be carry out, or some version of Grubhub, or Uber Eats or whatever, he would have said, no way. So I guess, and he's very happy with it, now, because his business has bounced back, and he's got a big new chunk of business. So have you guys stumbled into new opportunities, new customer bases that maybe weren't there prior to COVID?
Well, I can speak to.
Without giving away too much secrets. Don't give away any secrets, please. But
no, I mean we've been one of the main partners for Uber Technologies since 2013. We've helped them launch over 500 markets across multiple mediums, and including Uber Eats. And I can tell you from working with them on a day-to-day basis, when this pandemic hit, they looked at that as, okay, we need to get to work, because that's one, it's a business opportunity, but two, I mean, this is you're a very large entity that recently went public. You got to make sure that your shareholders are happy. And, the advent of delivering food is here. And you know what? We're in a new technology era where now people have become accustomed to it. So I just hope that as we continue down this path, and you have amazing companies like GoPuff populating, and on other entities like that are trying to deliver more and more on demand. As long as everybody can stay profitable and people can get the stuff that they want at the convenience of their phone or going out to eat, I'm all for it. I support any business channel that's going to allow everyone to make money. And in terms of your friend who, sales were down 40%. I've had a lot of really good friends lose their businesses that, 15, 20 restaurants been in business for 15 years, and half of them are gone, and it sucks to see that. So, I invite the opportunity to have other companies come in that will deliver the products for my friends that will keep them in business.
Justin, any new markets that came out of kind of your experience?
Yeah, we're not really seeing necessarily like new types of customers, but we are seeing a huge surge of just new business, and I think that a lot of that just has to do with you know probably other businesses either not surviving the pandemic or just not being able to pull it off, as well as I think we've been able to continue, how we've operated. So just in terms of like how many more, we have a lot more customers than we did, previously. But ultimately what we're doing is still pretty much the same, with the exception of the amount of individual drop shipping we're doing. That's become like its own separate, side of the business that's even operating out of another facility across the street.
It's funny you bring that up because I do want to talk about that because I think the business has evolved, right? I mean, a little bit in that capacity. We used to be more. Um, I've been doing this for 18 years, so believe me, I saw it. We used to sell container after container of T-shirts. Someone would fill them through, in a warehouse. Justin, you'd print them, and they'd be sitting there, and Joe customer would just buy and buy and buy, would buy it down and whatever. And things were getting more on demand, as time went on. But then it seems like COVID just really accelerated that, and now here we are, in the birth of print on demand. And you mentioned kitting as well. Is that an area? I see you shaking your head, Travis, that your business has evolved into versus where we were 18 months ago.
1,000%. We're constantly trying to grow every facet of our company to make us better. And, we want to be able to support our clients' requests in anything they ask us to do. And building out the 3PL facility right before COVID hit, that was us preparing for the next evolution within our company. And it just so happens that it was the right decision. Because all of a sudden everybody wanted 10,000 or 15,000 units drop shipped. And, now that we have our facility here in Minnesota, and then we have the one overseas, we're kitting and shipping tens of thousands of units a week. And that was something that we never thought we would be doing that much volume this fast, but COVID brought it upon us. And I'm just very grateful that we were ready.
Yeah, I think.
Patty, as a manufacturer.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Noel.
I'll ask you. And I'll ask you the question, but I think you got the answer. As a manufacturer, how you guys probably see the change happening with customers and programs in this capacity? Are you guys adjusting your business in any way?
I don't think there's been a bigger, more dramatic or quick change that's come to this industry than print on demand. It's been driven by, obviously e-commerce. It's been driven by technology where you can customize a shirt. No one thinks twice now. I mean, you used to always order 12 shirts, now no one thinks twice about paying $30, $40 for a unique shirt. that they order online. It's really changed everything, but it's not just in our channel. It's changed the way retailers are looking at their business. If you're a retailer and you have a printed T-shirt line, you don't need to carry a bunch of inventory. You put 12 styles out there, 12 designs. You see which ones are selling the quickest. You replace just those. It really has really far-reaching implications. And as a manufacturer, what we spend our time on is how do you make the shirt that prints the best, with that technology, with a technology that's changing constantly on top of it. For a while everyone wanted a pre-treated shirt so that you could quickly, that you wouldn't require the pre-treat on a DTG machine. But then the ink companies are telling us that, in a few years you won't even need pre-treat because the inks are going to be so advanced. So it's a constant staying in touch with the trends and trying to figure out what's a long trend, what's a short trend. We don't, at Gildan, we like to we're a volume, right? We're a big volume manufacturer. So we have to make sure it's something that's a long-term trend, but that's really how we're trying to address it. But it's not going away. It is a huge paradigm shift, I think, for the industry.
And yeah, I checked out Barrel Maker, and that's a perfect example of he has multiple decoration things going on at his facility where he can pivot to how's he going to decorate it based on what garment's available, similar to what we have. So it's like when I was going through his regimen of what he's offering, it's like, this is fantastic. I mean, that's what you need right now, is that you need to be able to pivot in any way you can that's going to get the job done, but you don't want to lose, you don't want to lose the value of what you're trying to give the client. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would say, in terms of the value though, like something like we're trying to avoid as a company right now is doing like those like one-offs or those really small runs, because we're not seeing good results on those with the technology that we have here, and even a lot of the technology we've seen just isn't able to give the same quality that we could do on using specialty inks or like good high quality screen printing type runs. So we are doing a lot of low volume screen printing, like 24 pieces to 50 pieces, like in that range. And a lot of the drop shipping, but at least in that smaller range, we're still putting out, superior quality. I would love to be able to do one-offs that look great, but we're just not.
I think it speaks to what we talked about earlier, that customers are looking, they're less price sensitivity if they get something that's quality, sustainable, lasts a long time. I agree completely. There's both sides of it.
This is probably a good time to wrap it up, but one last question, and it seems to be the question that makes the rounds in all these, post. I almost said apocalyptic, but that's not right. Post, quarantine, COVID environment is, hey, when's this all going to be behind us? And I think we've done a disservice to maybe our customers, maybe, and you've passed that on, and whatever, and that we've almost treated it like a Southwest Airlines flight. We've said, hey, just 5, 6, 7 more weeks of this, and everything's going to be good. We'll be back to normal. And as here we are, almost 18 months down the road. So maybe the question to kind of to end on, and get your guys' take, isn't when is this going to be behind us, but what really needs to happen to get moving in the right direction.
We have a board of decorators that we work with. It's an exchange of information between decorators and Gildan. And this question, I get asked this question, by the way, every single day. So, but I thought our CEO was actually Glenn Shimandi was speaking to this group, and what his point of view was, we're not going to get past this until the supply chains catch up, right? Until you can get right now you order a new knitting machine, you're talking 12 months, 18 months sometimes for things. Just like a car, the supply chains around the world are behind, and until those supply chains catch up and capacity and supply, can get are aligned again, we're going to be dealing with this. And the supply chains are probably a good 12 to 24 months away from really being back where they should be. And at Gildan, we're trying our best to be transparent, try to tell people what, where we are today, but it's constantly changing. So it's super challenging, but we're certainly going to be sitting through it next year in terms of the tightness. And I should add, they're good problems to have. We're thankful to have more orders than we can handle, but I'd rather have that than the alternative. But it's still challenging.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and in terms of when will it end, it's we're in the first year of a new president, and they've got their mandates in place that they're hoping that that's going to be the ultimate solution for it. Time will tell. There's so many different factors that play into, will the supply chain get back to where it needs to be, and what is restricting it from doing so. So I don't believe that we can answer that question within the next 12 months. I think it's going to play itself out, just as Patty had said. And I believe 2 years down the road, I think we'll have our solution in place. Hopefully we're viewing COVID as the flu, and we don't have 160 sea vessels sitting outside of LA.
I agree. I feel like we are trending in a positive direction. We're starting to see events coming back and actually, coming back with decent attendance, which is great. And I'm hoping that this is a good opportunity for businesses like mine and our industry to, get the pricing up a little bit higher and show more value in what it is that we offer. And also maybe it's a good opportunity to train our customers to order with a little bit more advance notice and kind of give ourselves more breathing room to actually operate better and more efficiently. And if that's the case, maybe in a year or two when the supply chain starts to stabilize, we'll also be in like a better position for the future too. So that could be good.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, all good points. I think you're offering. I think what we're asking for in many instances is a little grace, across the whole industry and the supply chain from your customers to the manufacturer. Because by all accounts, hopefully we've demonstrated it today that we're all working our tails off to try to get back to what we got in this industry for in the first place, which is taking care of people ultimately. And the thing, my final thought too is, and I saw it play out, and I know you guys were part of it. Gildan was part of it. Our industry is better than any other industry in terms of figuring out solutions to problems. I mean, if you would have told any of us 18 months ago that we were going to be manufacturing masks, selling PPE product, printing PPE, you would have said no way. And within probably a 30-day or less, time frame, we figured it out, and we're going to figure this out too. And we're in the process of figuring it out as well. So, gentlemen, lady, thank you for your time and your energy and your perspective. On behalf of S&S, thanks for taking the time. On behalf of everybody that's attending here, we also appreciate what you guys had to offer. So, on behalf of Patty, Justin, Travis, and myself, thanks for joining us today in the session, and we all look forward to a prosperous and prospective 2022.